So listen, this is what's, a big part of what's killing our larger corporations is this kind of thinking, this kind of innovation committee that takes 9 months to come up with a plan that yields 13 years. We're going to, make a 30% increase on the issue, right? So I want to dig into then. So you get this vision, you see this place is a fulcrum between two neighborhoods, right? I'm doing this. I call Eric, he's in, let's go do this, right? What's if you had to characterize the nature of the kind of entrenched thinking, kind of the core patterns of entrenched thinking over the last 18 months, 2 years that you've had to deal with, how would you characterize that? You can get into specifics if you want, but you don't have to. I'm just interested in the nature of the entrenched thinking.
So I think that it depends on which group you're looking at, right? If you're looking at it from a sort of citizen, most citizens are just down on Connecticut. Mm-hmm. So that's like a very entrenched sort of way of thinking. Just Connecticut sucks, blah, 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 and that's like negative thinking. You've got governments that, I had people sort of listening to the idea, and in the beginning they were positive. But then when they saw that I actually had the audacity to run, I don't think they expected that. And then 30 days later, first it was like, oh, this is the best idea we've ever heard of, and for that location, and this is going to be awesome for New Haven, and blah, 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 blah. 30 days later, we did a shitload of work, and then all of a sudden I got, it's going to be political. I don't know if it's going to work. It might take a few years to happen, and all this stuff. And I sat there just looking at this person or these people. I'm not going to.
That's good. It's a good filter.
I'm not going to burn any bridges yet. But it's getting to a point where I might. Yeah. And I just walked out of there, and I literally said to Eric, I said, what the hell just happened? Like, I go into something and I'm expecting like next steps. I want to like just hustle and break through walls and do what I got to do. And I walked away thinking to myself like, this is a great idea, and we just put all this time in, and we just basically got nowhere. Yeah. And then it occurred, and then that's when I started to see a lot of that sort of stuck feel that people have, and why it's there. And I just said to myself, like, I can't allow this to happen. And that's when I just started calling people and and sitting down with people and putting that time in, that 6 days that you talked about. Yeah. I put my 6 days in, and I went hard. Like, I probably had meetings all day long.
So did you call the people who were stuck, or did you go around and find others who could help move this thing?
I went everywhere.
Yeah. Okay.
Anybody, I would talk to I tell everybody what I'm going to do, because it keeps me accountable. Yeah. It puts it in the universe, and you're going to be lucky enough to where someone's going to say, "Oh, I know what to do," and that's what happens, right? So you talk to 100 people, and 2 people go, "Oh, I know who you should talk to," and then you talk to 2 more people, and those people go, "This is how you do this." And that's how I find things really, really quickly.
That's right. This is again another just calling card of folks who do impossible things. Right? They're fundamentally unstoppable. Most human beings are stoppable. They get to a certain threshold where it's like, okay, well, I'm not crossing that line, right? And unstoppable is not, in my experience, belligerence. Right? Belligerence gets you out of the game, but it's just a willingness to not stop. Okay, it can't go. It's like water, the old Taoist teaching of water, right? I mean, water will find a way around, under, over, doesn't matter. But it doesn't try to fight the obstacle. It just finds a way. Yeah.
See, you know all the like really intelligent, smart people that say really great things. Yeah. And I just go to like Jay-Z saying difficult takes a day, impossible takes a week. Yeah. You know, like I'm inspired by different people. Because I grew up in a different place, so I just...
we talked about it. We actually grew up in the same place. I just,
Yes.
I just pretend to be smart.
No, because you're much more academic about the people you quote, and I'm like Jigga and...
I don't know. We can turn this into a hip-hop conversation.
Maybe.
Listen, you mix another one of these.
By the way, I insisted that we were going to drink old fashions while we did this, because he said, the old school way of doing this, we'd have this conversation over some whiskey, and I was like, say no more.
when we
And
used to
I brought all my ingredients from the house, and I made what do you think?
solid, it's good.
We went to what bar was that?
Anchor spot.
We went to the Anchor, and this guy was like
Yeah, you're on tape.
his name was Bootleg, right?
Bootleg. Yeah.
And he was a scientist with this old fashioned. So I asked him for the recipe, and I copied it.
Good.
So,
I thought you were going somewhere else.
No,
Yeah, I
that's
love
all.
Bootleg, love Anchor. Again, another great New Haven spot. Yeah. Yeah, we used to, when we ran this back in New York, there was a thing, I'm a bourbon collector, and so there'd be, we'd share a bourbon. I mentioned that to David, and of course, and so this is the state of my life, right? 50 years old, at work for a couple of decades, doing what I think is important stuff, and I got a text this afternoon, hey Al, can you pick up an orange on the way in for the old fashioned? This is where my career is, I'm a fruit runner.
No. I made the drinks. Huh?
You did make the drink. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. So tell me about, when we work with folks on the leadership side in the kind of 2-year incubator we have, or on the client side, Breakthrough has 4 criteria to it, right? Impossible has 4 criteria to it. A, from where you start, it is fundamentally impossible. There's no realistic way to assume you can get this done, okay?
Okay.
B, it's bigger than your self-interest. It includes your self-interest, but it's inherently bigger than your self-interest.
Mm-hmm.
C, once achieved, it's going to outlive you. Inherently, the nature of the thing is going to live beyond you. So you step away, you get hit by a truck, by the nature of the thing, you've changed something permanently.
Mm-hmm.
D is the one I want to ask you about. D is that the Breakthrough inherently makes your heart sing. It's not something that you treat as a good idea. It's not something that you like, but it is fundamentally something that for you moves you. Right? So I've heard that from you a lot in the time I've known you, and I haven't heard from you yet tonight. What about this whole thing moves you?
So I have. There's some uniqueness to where I come from, right? So I don't have a typical upbringing, right? I grew up in New York City. I have very mixed blood, so I have like every single part of the world comes up in my DNA except for India and Australia, and I don't think anyone's from Australia, right? I think that you had to like come from somewhere else to get to Australia. So I've been around so many people. I'm literally Native American. My father was born in South America, come from Spain. I have all these ethnicities. I have sort of all this way of growing up in this sort of melting pot. And I was around like blue collar people. I was around rich blue collar people. I was around the criminal element in New York because at the time in the 80s and 90s, New York City was wild. I've just seen a lot of stuff, and I have a unique perspective on people and communities. Or even like the people that I get along with the most tend to be the most street, most authentic, most down-to-earth people, where there's vulnerability and strength in who they are all the time. And I also have this incredible urge to always try to do something that's got good energy around it. Like I always talk about like, and it comes from my father actually. My father used to always say, whenever things were going bad, he would say in his really thick Spanish accent, "That's bullshit." You could literally be like, "Dad, I got cancer." He'll be like, "That's bullshit." And it wasn't, and when I was young, I misinterpreted what he was doing. Like it was just sort of him discounting it, which is the typical thing. It's what my wife does to me when I tell her it's bullshit to whatever she's thinking about. But really what it was is that he didn't want you to get stuck in the negative stuff. And I feel like so many people were stuck that I felt like I could, through this project, through the momentum of District, through the businesses that come out. I mean, like already we've had amazing achievements. We've had patents in this building. We've had fundraisers in this building. We've had, you know, the CFO of Google was here. Like we've had so much happen already, and it's only year one, right? So it was really for me to show the state, and I wanted to go and permeate to all four corners, that it's not steady habits anymore. That Connecticut doesn't mean what it meant yesterday. It means what you want it to mean tomorrow. So it was like, and imagine doing that through a piece of real estate. Like imagine doing that through a bus depot or a piece of land. Like that to me, and the more people that come and say, I can't believe this is Connecticut. Or I see the awe that people have when they like read about it or heard about it, read about it, saw it on TV, saw a picture of it, saw it on social media, and then they walk through the doors and they're just like, holy shit. And it's not even that it's that crazy. It's just, it evokes emotion. It has energy to it. People say that they feel something, right? Or I've had people walk in and say, oh my God, it feels like Silicon Valley. And then I'll say, have you ever been to Silicon Valley? And they're like, no. And I'm just like, okay. But that's, you know what I mean? Like that says something. Or I can't believe this is Connecticut, right? Like that's, you've heard it. You've heard people come in here and like it's so cool to see that.
I heard it tonight. I literally heard it tonight.
Yeah.
Two people in the audience, I won't call them out, there are two people in the audience that said, we're in Connecticut, we're thinking, do we want to stay? But if Connecticut's literally, they said, I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, but they said, if Connecticut's got stuff like this, I mean, it'd be great to stay. Literally tonight.
What I think is the best part is that you get to build stuff like this, right? Like and it deserves to be here. Like this is, whether this is the middle between Stanford and Hartford or it's the middle between New York and Boston, if they have cool shit, we should be the mecca of cool. We have so much stuff going on. So I love the fact that it gives me the opportunity to build and to create, right? This is what it is. It's all about creation.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was at a town meeting last week, this branding meeting, right, that we talked about for the town. It was actually interesting. And so the two observations I made were A, that I've traveled a ton. I've had the great fortune I've been to 42 states. I've been to everywhere in Western Europe. I've been real blessed with the opportunity to travel, right? I've never experienced a city that, like New Haven, that provides you legitimate access to city, world-class food, world-class art, world-class theater, at the scale of community, right? Like you can engage with this place as a community. You can't engage with New York as a community. You can engage with a neighborhood as community, maybe, and these days, and that's questionable, right? So I'm with you. It's a really interesting thing that we have here.
Murray Moss was here last week.
Yeah.
You know who he is?
I don't think so.
He's famous. He's got a book out called "Please Do Not Touch This," and so he's considered one of the greatest purveyors of industrial design, and his store was considered like one of the best world-class design stores in Manhattan in the 90s through to like mid-2000. So one of the bookstores, independent bookstores up in Madison, R.J. Julia, they did a sort of like this here between the two writers, Murray and Franklin. And Franklin said, because they were like Manhattanites, like, you know, like design snobs. They sold $200,000 pieces, like crazy stuff. And now they live in Hamden. And they said, like, why did you do it? And they said, you know, we wanted something different. We wanted a specific type of house that had like the design background that we had. So they found this like crazy house because you got such an amazing architecture school here in Yale. So one of the architects came and did something crazy in Hamden. And they said, but what was most amazing is that in 25 years living in a building in Manhattan, they never met a neighbor. Like they were 25B, right, 25th floor, and they never met A or C. In 25 years, never met A or C. And they said within 1 week, every neighbor on their block had stopped by their house and said hello and made them feel welcome. And they were like, this is different, but it's different in a good way. I sort of know that too. Mine was different. Like growing up in Queens in a building, the whole building knew who we were. My father was also the superintendent, so that made sense too. Like they had to call us to get in their house if they got locked out. So.
Neighborhoods like that, I also imagine they're more kind of insular and protective of the thing, right?
Yeah.
So a last set of questions, I want to open it up to them, but just before we get to that, so one of the ways I can read something you said about 10 minutes ago is that basically our relationship is you filling in the missing South Asian DNA that you.
Pretty much.
Pretty much. That's it. That's the only thing. Yeah. Now you got a full genetic spectrum. Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess. No, well, I have Chinese.
Yeah.
I do. I'm 4% Chinese.
Yeah.
I'm 10%, 9%, 10% Native American.
Yeah.
Some 4% Northern African. Yeah, I guess just Asia. So you fill it in.
I've always gone by the mindset that I'm 100%.
And but you do bring all that to my life, and I appreciate it, right? I got the tea here, the holy basil,
the turmeric.
Yeah, the turmeric. Yeah, I got it at the house. Yeah,
there you go. So last set of questions, and we'll open up to them about you. Okay. Well, again, another just thing I've learned over the years is that you cannot take on breakthrough work. You can't take on doing the impossible and get out of it alive. That I used to tell clients this, and they think it was a joke. I'd say, listen, one of the agreements we have to have is at the end of 3 years. I'd worked with people 3 years. That's how long it took to do a transformation. I'd say at the end of this, you realize you're going to die, and if you don't, I may have to kill you, right? Because you can't be who you are and create something fundamentally new. So, what was that for you? What did you have to die to? Who's the David that had to kind of get left behind, not because there's anything wrong or bad about him, but just because it wasn't appropriate for what was next?
I had to let go of so my baggage. I realized that actually the breakthrough was this year.
Yeah.
For me, my personal breakthrough.
Yeah.
I realized that I had carried along who I was when I was a kid, where I grew up, the people I grew up around, sort of the lessons that I learned from those people, which made me who I was, but gave me the crutches and the insecurities that I had today. And I always led with that.
Yeah.
I was and part of it was also that I never wanted to feel. I didn't want to give the impression that I was more important than anybody, because I didn't feel that way, especially if I'm going to be in the community role, right? Like I'm trying to do something really big, right? And the last thing I want is people to think like I'm rich or this or that. So I would lead with I grew up poor. And Spanish, African, and Chinese.
Yeah.
I had to, but that wasn't the crutch. The crutch was sort of I met with someone and they said, you got to take that young man that was scared of the street or fought in the street or did these things to grow up, and you have to show him who you are today and show him how you think today and how that didn't hurt him and he doesn't have anything to worry about anymore, right? Because in New York, you could walk through the street, you could walk down a street. When I was growing up, there could be 50 people on a corner of a street that you have to pass to get home. And if you walk through there, there's a chance that you're going to get the shit kicked out of you, or if you walk around, you might get chased because they're like, oh, he walked around us. So you had to make decisions in real time to survive. And now I don't have to do that stuff anymore, but I think about it all the time, and I had to put all that stuff and just say, I'm okay now, I'm safe, I can walk any neighborhood, I'm not afraid, and all this stuff, and no one's trying to hurt me, so I don't need to be so, I don't have to have as much bravado or any of that stuff, and I can just sort of be the creative guy that really cares about the things that he cares about. And that happened, and my relationships changed. We've talked about it, literally my relationship with my COO, my CFO, my former partner, everything changed because I think it was the final piece to show people that I didn't have armor, right? That I had, it was my vulnerability. So it's exactly what I said I love about people that are authentic and have a strength and a vulnerability to them. When they're typically from the street or from or what have you. It was what I needed to show people. And I sort of that guy I don't say he died, but he let me live.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. It makes total sense.
I didn't know you were going to get that deep.
I just, that's, there's this whole, we took a run at personal, like I've shared this, right? And I've shared this with people who know me. I've spent my entire life in business. I have zero interest in business to this day.
I know, we talk about it all
Right,
the time.
zero interest. But it's just where I found that I could have an impact on human beings because that's where they spend most of their lives, right? And so we took a run at personal transformation as a starting point, as a starting and ending point. And I found we couldn't get it done reliably. I found what had to happen is that you had to have something at stake bigger than your own self-interest and be at work on that. And then in that container, something like what you're speaking to can happen reliably, as opposed to self-help and then in 9 months I need another dose.
Yeah.
Right, so I very much get what you're saying, and I appreciate that you've taken the journey. I just a week ago, what I said about you. So I've had the pleasure of seeing you in that period when you're saying you had that transition, and here's how I articulated it to your former business partner, or current business partner. I'm sorry. I said, my sense is that Dave was a guy who was trying to get into the party, and who he is now is. He's the host of a party, but he's totally comfortable in the role. Like, it's not like this is mine, but this is yours. Like, there's that level of comfort of just hosting other people's commitments.
Yeah.
That's a transition I've seen, that you have a capacity. You've always probably had that capacity, but at this point, there's such a comfort in that capacity to hold space for others.
Exactly. It was... I think that's exactly it. It's sort of being more welcoming to everyone. It's really just sort of recognizing people. I don't know, it's a bunch of stuff. Honestly, it's like a combination of, I think in angles. I think about, I've always thought in angles, right? So if I think about an idea right now, in the next 20 minutes, I want to outline all the value of that idea, right? Every angle. So I'm like, because I want to try and reduce the risk. If I chase this, what are the good things? Like you heard when I talked about the helicopter, right? Solves a problem, adds to my brand, could be profitable, blah, 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 blah. These are the angles of value that I go through in my mind. Now I try to apply that to the people around me. Why are they the way that they are? Why are they looking at me this way? Why are they mad at me? Why are they judging me? What are they afraid of? Right? I try to go through their angles as to what's creating that. And then also, in wanting to do that, I went through it on my own. And then I think from there, it just became like this incredible comfortability where I almost feel, I don't almost feel awkward. Like I always feel awkward when people say like I'm a visionary or I'm the founder or any of that stuff, because honestly, like I go home and I'm like, I tell my wife all the time, like if it wasn't for Johanna, like I wouldn't be here today. Like she is a absolute beast. But what I realized is she's a different type of beast, right? When I call people in business beasts, right? Like if you're like a crazy salesperson or a creative or this, I'm like, you're a beast, you're this, that. She is completely different than me. And we have such a good complement. It's that VI integrator, right? That vision and integrator sort of combo. And it's like so there. And it was so perfect that she was there for me and that we were able to get over the hurdles that we had in our existence. And now I feel like together we're unstoppable.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, breakthrough is a relational activity. There's notes that this whole mythology of the great lone leader that walks into the wilderness and conquers the whatever, it's not real. There's 100 Johannas behind every visionary, behind every Steve Jobs.
Well, it could be real, but eventually you're going to hit a wall.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing I realized. I never thought that I'd hit a wall. But then I got to a place in my career, in my life, in my sort of maturity, in my cycle, to realize that my wall might be impressive. Like my wall, like they say, like I might be able to come up with an idea and build it into a multi-million dollar business, but I might be able to triple it if I'm open enough to partner with an integrator, with someone that is going to allow me to, because my pure will and desire can get it to where most people would say, oh my God, he's successful. But there's another gear.
Yeah.
Maybe there's another few gears if I'm willing to bring on somebody that can take me there. So that was sort of,
Yeah.
I don't know if someone died. You said someone died in me, maybe?
Well,
maybe.
It's a provocative phrasing. Right?
I get it.
It's a provocative phrasing. It's not literal. And at the back end of it, it's exactly what you articulated. It's not an actual dying. It's a
rebirth.
integrate. Yeah, and
It's a rebirth,
integrating.
yeah.
And what it does is it transforms the past.
Yeah.
Instead of getting locked into and getting stuck into who I am, it transforms who I was.
Mm-hmm.
That story of hardship now gets transformed into something totally different.
Yeah.
Right? But at the beginning of it, it feels like, holy crap, this thing's got to die. And so I make it that visceral for clients.
Yeah,
you know?
that makes sense.